I wasn't very social in college. I didn't get good grades, wasn't in a club, had no girlfriend, and wasn't very involved in anything. I wasn't a thrilled kid. I'm not complaining though. Life turned out fine. In my late 30s, I found someone who never stopped fighting for me. She's loyal, kind, and we have 2 cats, Max and Luna. I'm planning to propose soon. Back in college though, parties weren't really my thing. I still wanted to have fun, but I never had an easy way in. My friends Kevin and Sam were in the same boat. Most weekends, we wasted time in Kevin's dorm, playing games or watching movies. That being said, whenever we got a chance to crash a party, we took it. Most were off campus, completely unassociated with school or any clubs. One time we even drove an hour just to get into one. That's how desperate we were. One Friday afternoon, Sam texted the group chat. Some girl he was talking to knew about a party nearby. Sam had a habit of attracting the weirdest girls. You know the type, edgy, unpredictable. Kevin joked that we'd probably walk into some gothic anime metal party, and honestly, I half expected that too. But Sam swore it was a normal party. We had nothing better to do, so we agreed to go. Kevin convinced his older brother Mike to drive. Mike didn't drink, so it worked out. Everything was set. On the drive, Sam started getting anxious. The girl, Olivia, had stopped replying. Hours passed, and then her entire profile disappeared. Blocked. Just like that. He got all moody about it, saying he wasn't sure if he even wanted to go anymore. But we were already halfway there, so he had no choice. We arrived at the house and immediately knew we made the right choice. It was huge, way bigger than the other houses on the block. People flooded inside. It looked wild. But Sam, still sulking, insisted we drink before going in. We parked further down the street and pre-gamed with a few beers, watching the party from a distance. When Sam finally loosened up, we made our way to the door. As soon as we stepped inside, something felt off. The house was fully lit, not a dim corner in sight. College parties usually had dark, moody lighting, but this place was as bright as a grocery store. The people? They weren't dressed for a party. No jeans, no hoodies. It looked like a high-class gathering. Crisp suits, elegant dresses. The vibe was more business cocktail than college rager. The music was strange too. No pop, no rap, no party anthems. Just dreamy, hypnotic instrumentals. No lyrics, just flowing, eerie melodies. It wasn't bad, just weird. We exchanged glances, silently questioning if we were even supposed to be here. Sam swore he didn't know it'd be like this. But the drinks were free, so we went with it. As we moved through the house, I started noticing something unsettling. People were staring, not just quick glances, but actual, lingering looks. And every time I caught them, they immediately looked away. At first, I thought maybe it was because of our casual clothes, but the more it happened, the more it unsettled me. Despite the weirdness, we started having fun. Mike, however, was unimpressed. Since he wasn't drinking, he decided to head back to the car to smoke. The 3 of us stayed, and soon enough, a group of girls approached us. They flirted aggressively, like way too aggressively. We weren't exactly the smoothest guys, so getting approached like this was a rare event. They joked about an entrance fee. We laughed, thinking they were just messing around. Then they pulled out a bottle of tequila, an actual entrance fee. We weren't about to say no. Shots were taken, and before long, the 6 of us were together, drinking, laughing, dancing. That's when I noticed something odd about Lisa, the girl I was with. On her neck was a thin green line. It was too precise to be random, straight even, almost glowing under the light. It didn't look like a tattoo. It didn't smudge like makeup. It looked unnatural. I debated asking her about it, but decided against it. Maybe it was a birthmark. Maybe it was some weird fashion statement. Either way, once I noticed it, I couldn't unsee it. The party continued. Kevin disappeared upstairs with his girl. Then Sam followed suit. That left me and Lisa. Things were going well, but I suddenly felt hot, nervous, anxious. The alcohol wasn't helping. I excused myself to find the bathroom. I finally found one, but it was occupied. As I waited outside, the door swung open, and a tall man stepped out. He looked older, mid-40s maybe. He wore a white button-down and linen pants. As I went to step in, he bumped into me. Not just a light brush, He full-on stopped me in my tracks. I turned, expecting an apology, but he just stood there, staring. His face was blank, studying me. His eyes were cold. Something wasn't right. Then I saw it. On his neck, the same green line. Identical to Lisa's. My stomach dropped. Against my better judgment, I asked, "What's your problem?" He smirked, shook his head, and whispered one chilling question. "Who invited you?" Before I could answer, his expression shifted. Not anger, not confusion. Something worse. Recognition. He turned away abruptly and disappeared into the crowd. My heart pounded. Something was wrong, and I needed to leave. I weaved through the crowd searching for Kevin and Sam. My head was spinning. The music felt louder, the lights too bright. I reached for my phone, but my pockets were empty. I must have left it in the car. I reached the front door. My hand was on the handle when I heard Lisa's voice behind me. "Leaving so soon?" Her tone was light, but something about it froze me in place. I turned slowly. Her eyes were too wide, her smile too still. The green line on her neck seemed brighter. I yanked the door open and stumbled outside. The night air hit me like a wave, but I didn't stop. I ran down the street toward the car. Mike was inside smoking. He saw me and rolled down the window. "What's up?" "Start the car, now." He didn't question it. As we pulled away, I looked back. Lisa stood in the doorway watching. Then one by one, the other partygoers stepped outside. They stood in perfect rows, staring as we drove off. Not moving, not speaking, just watching. We never found Kevin or Sam, and to this day, I still don't know what that party really was. This happened years ago, and while some details are hazy, I remember the important parts clearly. It was my last day of school in 3rd grade. At my school, kids in 3rd grade and below had to be picked up by a parent, while 4th graders could walk home alone. My dad always picked me up on the last day of school. My best friend Kevin and I had planned a play date to celebrate. Kevin wasn't in my class that year, so he was dismissed from a different hallway. After school, we lined up and walked to the exit, where I stood waiting for Kevin's mom to pick us up. Parents came and went, calling out for their kids. Then I heard my name. "Ethan! Ethan!" I turned and saw a man waving at me as he approached. He introduced himself as Kevin's uncle and said he was picking me up. I told my teacher, Mrs. Green, that I was leaving, and when she asked where my ride was, I pointed at the man. He waved at her, and without any further questions, she let me go with him. He walked fast, talking quickly and nervously. He said Kevin's mom had to run errands, so he was taking me to their house instead. That's when I realized something felt off. Where was Kevin? Why weren't we picking him up too? When we got to his car, a dark blue sedan, he told me Kevin was already at home waiting for me. I was a quiet kid, shy around adults, and I didn't ask many questions. But something about this didn't feel right. As we drove, he kept talking, telling stories about his childhood, asking me questions about school, sports, and my favorite subjects. I glanced outside. We had been driving for at least 15 minutes, which was strange. My house was only a 5-minute walk from school, and Kevin's house wasn't far either. Finally, he parked in front of a house I didn't recognize. It looked normal, but something about it made my stomach feel heavy. We went inside and he quickly locked the door behind us. The house was dark. All the curtains were shut, making it feel like nighttime, even though the sun was still out. A dim lamp in the corner was the only light. I asked, "Where's Kevin?" His whole body language changed. He looked nervous. He stuttered something about Kevin being downstairs playing video games. Then he told me to wait and disappeared into another room. I heard a door open, then footsteps going down to what I assumed was the basement. My heart pounded. I knew something was very wrong. I went to the front door and tried to open it, but it had a lock that needed a key. My hands shook as I pulled on it, but it wouldn't budge. I wanted to scream, but I was too scared. I still held on to the tiny hope that Kevin was really here. I turned and ran to the kitchen. My eyes darted around until I spotted a phone hanging on the wall. My hands trembled as I picked up the receiver and dialed 911. When someone answered, I whispered, "Please come to this house. I've been kidnapped." The operator responded asking for details, but I didn't say another word. I placed the phone under a towel and rushed back to where I had been standing just as I heard the man coming up the stairs. His voice called out, "Come down! Kevin is waiting!" I didn't answer. He called my name again. Then I heard his footsteps approaching. He walked fully into the room, staring at me. His fake friendly smile was gone. I asked in a shaky voice, "Can I go home?" His face darkened. He stepped closer and suddenly grabbed my wrist tightly. I screamed, struggling to break free. He yelled, "Tatari, stop it! If you behave, I'll let you go." Terrified, I stopped fighting. He dragged me toward the basement. The door slammed shut behind me, and I heard the lock click. I stood at the bottom of the stairs, staring at the empty, cold basement. The floor was rough concrete, and a single exposed light bulb cast a sickly yellow glow over the room. It looked exactly like the kind of place where kidnapped kids ended up. Upstairs, I heard his footsteps moving around. He was pacing. Then he came back to the door and called down, "Are you hungry?" I forced my voice to stay calm. "No." I didn't want him to go to the kitchen and find the missing phone. He shut the door again. I sat there, my heart pounding so hard I thought I might pass out. Then I heard it. The doorbell rang, once, twice, 3 times. Then loud, heavy bangs followed. Someone was pounding on the door. The police. I didn't scream yet. I waited. The knocking got louder. The doorbell rang again and again. I heard voices shouting from outside. Then a huge crash, like the door being forced open. Multiple footsteps rushed inside. I ran to the basement door and pounded on it, screaming for help. Within seconds, the door was unlocked. A police officer grabbed my arm and led me outside. My legs felt weak, but I ran as fast as I could. Outside, red and blue lights flashed. There were at least 3 police cars. The man was dragged out of the house in handcuffs. I never saw him again. A little later, my parents arrived. My mom was crying so hard she could barely breathe. Back at school, there had already been chaos when Kevin's mom realized I had been taken. It turned out the man was a work associate of Kevin's mom. He had somehow learned that Kevin's mom was supposed to pick us up and took advantage of the opportunity. To this day, I don't know how he knew what I looked like. After that, my mom took me to counseling for months. She was furious with my teacher for letting me go without checking properly. But if I hadn't called 911 before he locked me in that basement, I know for sure I wouldn't be alive today. This happened about 20 years ago. That man might be out of prison now. I don't like to think about it. When I was 16, a junior in high school, everything seemed normal. Lunch periods were randomly assigned, and that year I only had 2 friends, Jake and Ethan, in my lunch group. It was an ordinary routine until one day a new student arrived in my first period biology class. The teacher, always one to joke around, made the new student introduce himself. His name was Alex. After a bit of teasing, the teacher directed him to the only empty seat in the classroom, right next to me in the back row. Alex walked over, sat down, and scanned the room. Then his gaze settled on me. There was something unsettling about the way he stared, but I brushed it off when he nodded in greeting. I nodded back, offering a polite response. Alex was an average-looking kid with scruffy, uneven facial hair. There was nothing particularly striking about him, but there was something about his presence that felt off. He tried making small talk, and I was polite enough to respond. Being the new kid had to be tough, and I didn't want to be rude. When we were assigned partners for a project, he naturally asked to team up. With no close friends in that class, I saw no reason to refuse. As we worked, I quickly realized I didn't enjoy his company. His jokes were crude and relentless, his laughter awkward and forced. He cursed excessively, throwing out vulgar remarks without a second thought. I wasn't overly sensitive, but there was something about his humor that made me uneasy. Still, I tried to be civil. By the end of the period, we exchanged numbers for the project and moved on. At lunch, Ethan was absent, leaving only Jake and me at our usual table. As we ate, Jake's eyes flicked upward, and I felt a presence behind me. A chair scraped against the floor, and when I turned, Alex had seated himself beside me. He patted my shoulder in a way that felt too familiar for someone I had just met. Dread settled in my stomach. I knew then that he would sit with us every day. I tried to stay open-minded, but as lunch went on, Alex's behavior only solidified my unease. He made disturbing comments, his humor crossing the line from awkward to unsettling. Jake caught on quickly, shooting me knowing looks when Alex wasn't paying attention. By the end of the lunch period, I was certain something was not right about him. This was more than social awkwardness. There was a darkness in the way he spoke. After school, as I walked home, I texted my friends about plans for the night. My phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. "Turn around." A chill ran down my spine. I turned and there he was, Alex, jogging toward me with a wave. I forced a smile as he caught up. "How far do you live from school?" he asked casually. "About 10 minutes. "Same, I'll walk with you." I nodded, but unease settled deep in my gut. Then came his next question. "Want to finish our assignment over some beers?" I quickly made up an excuse. "I have plans with my friends." "What kind of plans?" he asked, pushing for details. I hesitated. He was looking for a way to invite himself. "Just hanging at Jake's," I said, trying to sound casual. Alex didn't even hesitate. "Cool if I come?" I scrambled for a reason to say no. Jake's mom doesn't like new people over right away. That seemed to satisfy him, but he continued walking with me all the way to my house. When we arrived, I turned to him. "All right, see you later," I said, offering a quick fist bump. He returned the gesture and walked away. But as I stepped inside, I noticed him glancing back. An hour later, my phone buzzed again. Another message from Alex. "Yo, what's going on at your house? Why is there a cop car out front?" My stomach twisted. I rushed to the window. No cop cars, just Alex standing in my driveway, grinning. "Gotcha," he called. I stared at him in disbelief. "I thought you were going to Jake's," he said. "Yeah, later," I muttered. He tilted his head, watching me. "Why are you being weird?" I asked. His smile faded. A shadow passed over his face. Without another word, I stepped inside and locked the door. Minutes later, another text. A long message about how he thought I was different, how he thought we were friends, but now he realized I was just like everyone else. I sent a screenshot to my group chat. My friends were disturbed but found it ridiculous at the same time. I emailed my teacher, requesting to work alone on the project. Then I left for Jake's house to get away from the eerie situation. While I was there, Alex tried calling me again. I let it ring. That night, I returned home around midnight. The house was empty, my parents were out, and my sister was likely with her boyfriend. Nothing unusual. I locked the door and headed upstairs, scrolling through my phone. Then the back doorbell rang. A chill spread through my chest. Our house had a back doorbell, separate from the front. I hesitated, then went downstairs, expecting my sister. But outside, the backyard was pitch black. No one stood at the door. A creeping sense of dread filled me. I peered through the glass, scanning the darkness. Then I heard it, a soft scraping sound, a shoe against the concrete patio, just out of sight. Every instinct screamed at me to shut the door. I locked it and bolted upstairs. My hands trembled as I grabbed my phone. It buzzed again. Alex was calling. I didn't answer. A text followed. "Come outside." My breath caught in my throat. I responded immediately. "I'm calling the police." A reply came almost instantly. Okay, I'm leaving." Terror washed over me. He had been out there, hiding in the dark, waiting for me. I sent screenshots to my family, my friends, and even the school. The next day, school officials contacted Alex's parents. Turns out he had been forced to move schools multiple times for similar reasons. He never came to class again. I never saw him after that night, and I never want to know where he went.